Hi, Tricia. Welcome to our leadership talk. We as FuturaFemina are interviewing some people who are really making progress on personal leadership. And today we're inviting you to talk with us about that. Perhaps you could start with a personal introduction.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sasha, and thanks for the invitation. So my name is Tricia Naddaff. I'm the president of MRG, Management Research Group. We design psychological assessments that support people's self-awareness and support their growth and development. We love the quote by Aristotle, self-awareness is the beginning of all wisdom, and I think that's a guiding principle for us. So the business has been around for 37 years. We have an office in the United States and an office in Ireland. And I'm really happy to be with you, Sasha.
Yeah, it's so great because, you know, I've worked with you with your assessment tools, and they're really, really good. They go about leadership, about, you know, what drives you, and it really helps to tune into what my coachees to build a bigger picture of how they see the world. So it's really nice to be working together on that one. But today we talk about leadership. So what's your definition of leadership?
You know, since you and I were talking about doing this, it's really been on my mind because there's so much debate around it. And so in my thinking, I wanted to go right to the core that no matter what your philosophy of leadership, what is leadership? And what leadership is at its fundamental core is the process someone uses to move one or many people to a particular kind of outcome. And Sasha, as we know, right, that can be on a continuum. It can be done in a constructive, honorable way, and it can also be done in a destructive, dishonorable way. But for you and I, right, let's stay at the honorable continuum. Yeah. So there are many, many ways to do that, right? There are many ways to move somebody else to a place or move a group of people to a place. And so when I think about that, and I think about all the different leaders I've encountered over these many years, I've seen leaders do that through what you and I would call vision, right? A compelling picture and a compelling way to describe it to move people forward. But I've also seen what I would call generous technical experts, right? Who know so much about something and are generous in sharing that with other people. And so people want to follow along with them because they'll learn, right? Because they'll learn. And then thankfully, I've got, you know, one of the leaders in my organization in mind for this. There are leaders who are so good at organizing the work, right? So good at seeing this is what we need to accomplish. And these are the resources and the people we have to get it done. And they can shape the structure of how that work is going to get done. And sometimes they'll use design thinking, which, you know, as we know, is an evolving methodology for creative work of getting it done. And sometimes they're just good at putting the puzzle pieces together.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you and I both seen leaders who could be coaches, right? Who could do the coaching work you and I do. They lead people from either the side or behind and bring the best out in them. So there are so many examples of the way of doing this leadership. It is not just one methodology, right? There are so many variations of the methodology to help individuals or group of people move forward and want to move forward.
Yeah. So. Yeah, for me, personal leadership was also to add on that, because it is a lot with it being effective towards others. But to me, at the real core, it's to lead your own life, to really know what's true to you, and to be able to share that with the world. And then indeed, for instance, like you mentioned, lead by example, show people what to do, you know, that they can follow you, but also that you can influence other people. And indeed, with the last example, indeed, as I also do my daily work, coach people to be the leaders they want to be. So it's not just restricted to management, for instance. It's really about taking every step in your personal life, in business life, and everything what you can do, you can lead and show your personal leadership.
Yes, yes. So Sasja, you know us, that quote, self-awareness is the beginning of all wisdom, right?
Yeah.
How do you move others forward if you don't have a deep understanding of your philosophy, your own motivation, your way of working? And, I think, Sasja, we do leaders a disservice because I think we still hold up this mythology about the heroic leader, right? The leader who can all. And one, it's a myth. It's an impossible structure. We at MRG, we talk about the evolution of leadership over the last several decades, from the point in time where the expectation was you delegate by being very clear about what you want, and then after they finish it, you give feedback, and then you do the cycle again. And now, if we look at the definition of leadership, it is so comprehensive. It includes so many different expectations that it is now impossible for one person to embody everything that lives in that now very robust and complex leadership structure. I mean, the world has become complex. The world of work has become complex. What human beings expect and need has just grown. And so it's not surprising that the concept of leadership has grown with that. But what we need to leave behind is this idea that one leader can have mastery across it all. And when we leave that behind, I think we do the very important work you're alluding to, which is lead from the inside out. Mm-hmm. But you have to have a level of courage, a level of bravery. You have to have people and systems around you that say your personal growth is an important and necessary ingredient to this work. And oh, by the way, while all of this is needed in leadership, we don't expect every single leader to embody the whole thing. And then it gives the right framework for the individual to then grow with less fear, with less anxiety, and with a set of meaningful but realistic expectations. So I totally agree with you, totally agree with this, and I agree are the systems that are around the leadership space need to shift, so leaders, individual leaders, feel compelled and free to do that work.
Exactly, yeah. For me, it's such a great time because experiencing also myself in a very masculine-driven world, a business world, making a career in that, I had to push down a few of my feminine characteristics. And what I feel so great about the evolution you're describing is that it really comes from a more of a masculine dominated framework to including also the feminine side. And that's what I really want to get across as well for us as FuturaFemina, female future, to get that feminine side to it. So it's not just about females, which is also booming topic, but for everybody to get in touch with that feminine side, just as you were saying, have courage, but also be vulnerable, be such a leader that you're so strong that you can share all your soft sides and be a complete human, because we all have that inside of us.
Yes. And Sasja, your that framing again reinforces the need for these organizations or even just teams to create a culture of psychological safety, right? So for any of us to be vulnerable, in order for any of us to say, I'm not good at that, for people to say, I don't know the answer. We need environments that have psychological safety deeply embedded in them so people can say, I'm new to this. I don't know this. I'm feeling afraid. I'm feeling uncertain. If we don't have environments that create safety for people, then we can't ask people to be vulnerable. Then showing empathy becomes more challenging. The ability to sit with somebody when they're feeling vulnerable feels more risky, right? So we need to create environments that have psychological safety so that people can share ideas, take risks, show their weak, softer side, or to show their scary. We talk more and more at MRG about the importance of shared leadership. And if we have organizational systems that understand this myth of the heroine or the hero as a leader needs to be deconstructed. And if we have organizations that understand the value of psychological safety so people can bring their whole self to work, then there is not only no shame in saying, I can't do it all, but there's an expectation that you would look at who you are as a leader and what you have to bring into the system and look at what else is needed and weave in other people. People may be members of your team, they may be peers, they may be mentors, they may be people in different parts of the organization that you use as thinking partners, that you rely on them to bring in some skills that you are not as strong at. As long as we have this idea that if you're going to be a successful leader, then you can do all these things. And as long as we have organizations that make it too high a risk for people to be vulnerable, then we're going to keep making the same leadership mistakes over and over again. And we're going to keep making the same judgments about different ways of leading that actually don't help us move forward. They don't help us move forward individually. They don't help us move forward as an organization. And since we're going through what we're going through as a world right now, don't help us move forward as a global community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am totally aligned with you, Sasja, in that we really need to open up the space and make the full range of humanity available and active in the space, because that's who we are, right?
That's exactly it.
Humanness when we walk through the door, right? We are who we are. We are human beings trying to navigate a complex world.
Yeah, and in that we need connection. So, and that connection you can only truly make if that really comes from your core. If that's not blocked by all of the different systems, all of those layers which are around you, it's way more difficult to make that connection and really make something happen. I was wondering, Tricia, do you have a personal example where leadership has been really key to you and how you've used that? Because, you know, it's always good to have a personal reference.
Absolutely. So, you know, I just mentioned the idea of shared leadership, and Sasja, I don't think I'm alone. So I am the majority owner of MRG and I am the president. But I don't think I really understood the full responsibility of this role until this pandemic hit. When everything, you know, we've certainly lived through economic changes. I'm in the United States, so we lived through the post 9/11 experience. So certainly we lived, as much of the globe did, through what we call the Great Recession. But nothing has been like this pandemic, right? Nothing has been like this pandemic. And really having it seemingly happen almost overnight.
Yeah.
And the emotional pieces that are a part of that, the financial pieces that are part of that, the moving everybody from working in offices to working at home. We are a global company, so seeing it happen with all of our clients at the same time, I mean, it was a rock your world experience from a leadership perspective. And, you know, there are these sayings, right? Physician, heal thyself, you know, the kids without any shoes. we've been talking about shared leadership for a very, very long time. And we certainly have elements of shared leadership in our organization, but it wasn't until this experience where I think I really understood how much I needed and how much our organization needed shared leadership. And so we have, including me, a 4-person management team, and we immediately started meeting weekly, and we are 4 very different kinds of leaders, and how everybody was able to bring in their piece. We had a leader who could organize this is what we need to get done now so that our customers have access to us. We had a leader who could figure out all the financial pieces and make that complicated thing work. We had a leader who was a get it done, person.
Yeah.
So it was humbling, I think, as a leadership role. But it was one of those dramatic, intense times where your leadership just has to change. It has to change. And for me, it had to align even more strongly with the philosophy of what I believe in, but my personal practice had to change around it. And what's happened, Sasha, is I don't want to go back. I mean,
good.
Because it's such a liberating experience when you get to fully grow in the spaces of leadership that you feel are truly an embodiment of who you are, and you don't have to fake it in the other spaces because that's the embodiment of who they are. It's very, very, it's a very liberating space. And of course, so much better for the organization, you know? Humbling. And of course, I would wish I could have learned that deeper lesson without a pandemic, but it has served, I think, all of us well, and certainly has helped me grow as a leader in a really important way that I think, as I said, it will be sustained. It's one of those, some of those learnings, they skitter across and you get them for a little bit, but then you boomerang back to your old practices, and some learning gets in your bones, right? You know you won't go back because the learning is so significant and it sticks.
Yeah, unfortunately, we need sometimes really tough times to really notice that and to peel off another layer. And it's such a beautiful example you give, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say all the time. Really get to your core, be fragile enough to open up and really access that. And if you then share that with others, you can blossom to the fullest. And that's exactly what you're describing. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. And Sasha, I know your passion for bringing the feminine into the leadership space. It's interesting that our leadership team is all women, and so there is that sharing. There's a lot of care on our team for each other. There's a lot of care in our organization. I will say a shout out to the men within MRG are equal in that. Looking out for their colleagues, their willingness to be open, their willingness to share a level of vulnerability. So as you said, these what are traditionally thought of as more feminine characteristics are not limited to women. And
certainly not. No.
We have the great pleasure of seeing that in our organization. And certainly, what we classically think of more masculine, forceful, determined, very goal-driven. There are many women in our organization who have that as well. So
yeah, but it's great. It's not that the one is better. It's just that we're all different, and together we can make everything happen.
Yes.
But try to use your energy in the right way. Be what you really truly are, and then you can pull out all those resources and really still have energy at the end of the day. And otherwise, if you go into a mode which is not really you,
yes,
it gets really tiring as well.
Yes.
You're dragging this huge iron ball behind you, and and you're not getting anywhere. So would be a shame.
I totally agree. And I think that when you're not sitting in the seat of what is truly you, I believe the people around you somehow
pick it up.
They sense it, and it creates a level of uncertainty in the environment. Sort of, I think some level the brain is saying, what's going on here? There's something.
The brain is sniffing it out. They know it's not really you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so then I think others become watchful and less free in participating, right? Because they're not quite sure what's going to happen. So
they sense something is off. Yeah.
Yes.
And we don't need to. You cannot even cover it up with words, because I see also sometimes people trying to do that.
Yes.
And but when it's happening, you just. And people's brain is so beautiful that you have so many senses for everything trickle in, and you'll just know this is not right. It's not truly you. Yeah.
True. I'm curious. I know you're interviewing me, but I do have a question.
Oh yeah.
I know you have this passion. I'm curious about some of the things that you do to help people get in touch with what's true for them.
Mm-hmm.
How you help them separate from their public self and what they think they should do, and are there ways that you help
Oh
them?
yeah, definitely. Getting into a talk with a coachee and trying to figure out what really is inside of them, that's really the key of my whole work, because the rest is just a result of that.
Yes.
Because if you truly know what drives you, which IDI is also a great tool for that, to help to understand that. And because it's also a tool, it gets, let's say, a non-biased system to reflect on who you are. But what I typically do is I start out with those conversations to figure out what it is. I go back, for instance, to youth. What was exciting then? What were those little parts which you can see now coming back into your life? And, like for me, the feminine side of things, I used to, in the beginning, I had to repress my feminine side. So that was my trigger to now open up and make that my mission, to really put feminine leadership on, out there in the world in whatever way I can. And so everybody has this thing, which is, that common theme, which is overriding, which is tuning your values, your norms, and with that, translating it into every decision you're making. And some people are not always aware of what their purpose or their mission is. But Absolutely. If you then get into that and they understand that, it makes them way better decisions, and therefore format their life to what's really suitable to them. And then you see them, blossoming, getting more energy, really, being very grateful that I've discovered that. But, I'm just helping them what's already in them to figure that one out. So, and I truly love that. And I love the way the world is going into. And perhaps because I just want to be respectful of everybody's time who's watching this, can we close off with a tip from your end on leadership, or on your personal experience versus leadership?
Yes. So I'm a big proponent of what I call centering practices. And it can be so many different things, right? It can be, for some people it's meditation, for some people it's time in nature, some people it's journaling, for some it's even prayer. But that space where you go back to, that is accessible to you, that is the quiet, still space. When our computers have too much going on, we reboot, right? You can clear everything out and get the system to start afresh. I think as human beings, we need it, but I especially think as leaders, we need it. So I tell people, find your centering practice. Find the thing that is accessible to you, that you can trust that it will bring you back to that clear, centered space. Because if we can do that, we can make very conscious choices about how we participate in our lives, and certainly how we participate as leaders. And without that, I think we end up losing ourselves in the process of trying to do good work. So centering practice is what I would recommend.
Yeah, in the whirlwind of every day, you know, sometimes your focus is off, and it's certainly true what you're saying. Part of the practical tools I give to my coaches is indeed, you know, like a breathing technique. I use meditation myself. I do yoga. I go for walks into nature to really figure out what's happening. And I even had this last night, you know.
Yes.
I was quieting down, and then I had these, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, and then I'm thinking, okay, hey, there's something which is guiding me to this direction, and let's do that. So that's a welcoming space, and you know, if you haven't discovered it yet, there are really some good ways to get there. But it's one of those factors which helps you to get to that core, to really have that leadership shine out. So I love that you give that as a tip. I thank you very much for our talk. And I believe that we could spend a few hours more, but perhaps we will do that in the second session. I hope so, at least. And have a great day. And
you too.
See you
Thank
soon.
you for inviting me, Sasha.
Thank you, Tricia.
Bye.